Just when I thought we were done talking about the college football playoff snub, the state of Florida came out and did something that completely surprised not only me, but several people that have been following this. It was just 10 days ago that the College Football Playoff Committee and ESPN, backing them, snubbed Florida State in an unprecedented move, leaving an undefeated Power 5 team out of the college football playoff. We've talked about that at length. I've probably done enough whining and complaining and moaning about that for a lifetime. And I'm probably not done, but that's not the point of today's video. The point of today's video is it possible that with what the Attorney General in the state of Florida has done today for Florida State to potentially get out of the ACC a little bit quicker than was previously expected? I certainly think so. For those of you who missed it, and maybe if you're living under a rock or just didn't catch this yesterday, Florida's Attorney General launched an investigation into anti-competitive conduct, that's antitrust laws, against the college football playoff after they snubbed Florida State. Ashley Moody, our Attorney General here in the state of Florida, said, "What's clear is the need for more information about the decision made by 13 in secret, a decision that cost this university and the ACC millions of dollars." She said the College Football Playoff Committee is subject to antitrust laws, and they're launching an investigation to examine if they were involved in any anti-competitive conduct. She said the decision reeks of partiality, which anyone with a brain could tell you that. They're very favorable to the SEC. I don't think that's something that is a shock to any fan of any team out there. She said, "We sent a subpoena to the committee for all communication related to deliberations. We want vote tallies and we want vote rolls, and we also want software and programs and information on that used to tally votes." As she ended it with a pretty snarky comment saying, "If it's attention they wanted, they certainly have ours." I also like the little shot that she threw in the beginning and said, "As a lifelong Gator, I still know what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong." So good to see Ashley Moody, our Attorney General, out there in front of the Unconquered statue, a Gator fighting for FSU. That's the point that we're at now, is that even Florida fans know in their heart of hearts that this was wrong. We never talked about it on the channel, but even Billy Napier came out and when asked about it and said, yeah, that shouldn't happen. 13-0 team shouldn't get left out. Now, Billy Napier is not a very good coach, and so I'll move on from that and not take too much of his words into my heart, but just the idea there. A couple of thoughts that I want to talk about, and then we'll get out of here. This won't be a super long video, so stick around. I certainly do want to break down how this could benefit Florida State very quickly. But if you just follow a pretty logical thought pattern, a pretty logical train on this, it's pretty clear that ESPN's management very likely instructed or pressed their media employees to be very pro-SEC with both culture and direct communication or instructions. Several of their media members very much changed their tune over time and did it very abruptly. If the government or Florida State can find that ESPN coerced their media members into supporting the SEC in a campaign against the ACC, it's highly likely that they breached the terms of the ACC media deal. What does that mean? Well, ESPN has a vested interest in both the SEC and the ACC. Now, we all know they play favorites. That's not really something that's outside of what we believe or know. But if they did so, if they propped up one conference at the detriment of the other, how does that impact the contract that the ACC and Florida State have with ESPN? How does that maybe violate some terms? That's probably one of the first things that we're going to look at with this antitrust lawsuit. The government leverage that FSU has with senators, governors, and more is massive in this thing. And the power that the governor has already exercised in the state over a public university is huge as well. They're not going to let Disney and ESPN bully or blackmail a state institution. ESPN screwed FSU royally by their actions, and now it's time for FSU to leverage its political connections to fight back for not only its student athletes, but for the university and its fans and donors and supporters as well. Lastly, the power that FSU has with a boycott of Disney is huge as well. If fans at any point were directed to boycott Disney, it would cost Disney millions and millions and millions of dollars. Now let's break this down further. We all know, we've talked about this at length. We're not doing another conference realignment video. This is more so how this antitrust violation potentially could impact an exit. But we all know the grant of rights is blocking Florida State getting out. $120 million is the exit fee from the ACC. I think that could be paid pretty easily. It's the $300 to $600 million grant of rights fee that ESPN owns that Florida State would probably have a little trouble getting out of. But there certainly does appear to be a silver lining, and there appears to be some hope. I want to talk to you more about that as soon as I give some love to our friends over at Rapid SEO Host. They specialize in high-speed, SEO-focused WordPress hosting. What does that mean? If you use a WordPress site for your business and you want it to show up higher in Google search engine results, Rapid SEO Host will optimize your website to be lightning fast. Stats show that fast loading sites are easy to use and they're more likely to have better Google rankings. That means every time someone Googles your type of business, your website likely shows up first. If you're in a competitive business, you want every single advantage to try and beat the competition, and Rapid SEO Host will help you do that. They're efficient. They really offer a hands-off approach so that you don't have to be the expert. You might be using a big-name host right now who doesn't give you the attention, the customer service that your site needs. Rapid SEO Host will get you taken care of. They'll migrate it over for you, and they'll completely optimize it while you sit back and see the benefits of a lightning-fast website. They're noles just like you and I are. They will absolutely take care of you. Make sure you let them know that TJ sent you. All of their info is down in the description of this video. But again, it's Rapid SEO Host. If you need anything for your website, make sure that you reach out to them for all of your hosting and website needs. Okay, if it can be proven that ESPN was behind leaving us out or convinced the committee or coerced the committee in any way, it certainly would do some damage to the terms of the grant of rights that we have with them. What's that mean? Well, a lot of people think that Kirk just mysteriously had the 4 correct helmets behind him. Now, ESPN comes out and every time says, we don't know the results of this. We don't know what's going to happen. But somehow the Florida State helmet was replaced from behind Kirk, and he had the 4 teams in the exact right 4 spots. It was interesting that that happened. It was also very interesting that Greg McElroy seemed like he was reading off of a prompt, and who knows where that came from, when he was giving his diatribe about why ESPN should be in. Kirk Herbstreit sounded like he was being very rehearsed when he said the things that he said. And so the lawsuit, the subpoena, will find all of that out. We'll find out what the communication was. We'll find out what was said and what wasn't said. I do find it very interesting that so many ESPN employees were very pro-noles for most of the College Football Playoff Committee ranking shows until that very last one. The week before, Kirk, we talked about this. The week before, Kirk said Florida State fans should be happy. They're 4th right now. If they beat Louisville, they're in. Greg McElroy said we shouldn't even entertain the idea of a 13-0 conference champ being left out. Others echoed and said the same thing. Reese was positive towards the Noles getting in. Boo Corrigan was very positive. And then something happened in the next 5 days. Now, Florida State didn't play much more poorly than Michigan did. They beat a top 15 team by double digits. They won with a 3rd-string quarterback, a quarterback that wouldn't be playing once the playoff came around. But for some reason, everyone in the room's opinion on Florida State changed. Nothing about Florida State changed from that second to last week. But for some reason, everyone else's idea or thoughts around FSU did change. The idea that ESPN had nothing to do with it just completely seems ludicrous to me. If nothing else, the absolute best case scenario to me is that ESPN rehearsed a line and a narrative over and over and over and over again, and the College Football Playoff Committee just ended up buying it. Kirk said it enough. Reese said it enough. Reese pestered Boo Corrigan about it enough that they finally changed their mind. Now, I don't know the truth. I don't know what the communication between the committee and ESPN really was. I do know that it seems very strange to me and very blatant to me that ESPN employees continue to rehearse the line and the narrative that it would just be better games. Wouldn't it just be better games if Florida State wasn't in? And they very well may be true. There is no doubt about it that an Alabama at full strength against Michigan may very well be a better game. I know that might hurt you as an FSU fan to hear. I know you may not like that, but that's just the honest reality of what it is. Some of those games with Tate and with Brock, offense didn't look very good. I get it. But that's beside the point. That's beside the fact of what is earned and what is deserved and what the College Football Playoff Committee has always done. Josh Pate alluded to this. There's probably a faction of this that has to do with that TCU game last year where they said, don't you dare let that happen again. Don't you dare let our championship and our ratings and our TV and everything else behind it, don't you dare let that happen again. And Pate said if that happened, that was wrong. Well, not only is that wrong, but it could violate antitrust laws. It could violate some other things that the state is going to look into. And if this is how Florida State ends up getting out of their grant of rights contract with ESPN, we will all celebrate that Sunday as a national holiday that we got left out of the playoff. I'm just telling you, it hurts right now, and it stung and sucked for the last 10 days. But if that's how we get out, I will thank Boo Corrigan every day for the rest of my life because I think that there's a chance that happened. There's no way that these multi-billion-dollar organizations don't have influence on what ends up happening. Why is ESPN saying, but wouldn't it just be a better game if Alabama was in? Won't it be a better matchup? Won't they be more competitive? Won't that be better TV? Well, of course it will. Florida State fans would agree with you. It will probably be a more entertaining game with Alabama in it than it will be Florida State. Take your bias away, Florida State fans, and I think that's easy to agree with. But if that's why they did this, if ESPN was able to coerce the committee into doing this, and you've heard it from ESPN employees themselves, you heard it from Jaden Daniels, you heard it from Joey Galloway and Booger McFarland were talking about it. You heard it from Desmond Howard. They did it for TV ratings. And if that's the case, they violated some major, major stuff. What about the leverage that Florida State fans hold in this as well? 400,000 living alumni. Fans take that total well up over 1 million. And a lot of them live here in the Southeast. A lot of them live in the state of Florida. A lot of them live in Atlanta, Charlotte, states around this area, Tennessee. I just look at the numbers on YouTube and I can tell where you guys live. It's a lot here in the Southeast. What happens if this becomes a very public and loud battle between Florida State and ESPN? If the state of Florida finds that the College Football Playoff Committee, with the assistance of ESPN, violated antitrust laws, violated anti-conduct laws, then Florida State is going to sue the ACC and its media partner, ESPN. That's just what they're going to do. And they're going to say, you violated our terms of agreement, and we're suing to get out of the grant of rights. And if that happens, and Florida State fans are in a battle with ESPN/Disney to get out of the ACC, don't you think that battle turns pretty public? I mean, you guys have seen the boycotts of Target, Bud Light, when people get pissed off about whatever, whether it's political, religious, whatever. Let me tell you something. In the South, college football is up there with politics and religion and other things that people will boycott for. I'm just telling you. And if 1 million people stop going to Disney parks and stop buying Disney Plus and ESPN Plus and Hulu and stop buying merchandise, that is going to cost them hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's just not something they want. It'll be way more than the amount that the grant of rights is. I guarantee you. Well over, my family alone, you guys don't want to know this number. We have 5 passes to Disney. We have Disney Plus, the bundle, every single month. We pay for ESPN Plus. We pay for all those things. We buy Disney merchandise. We buy our kids Disney clothes. They like toy. We probably spend well over $1,000 a month. Now multiply that by 1 million FSU fans that are alive, alumni that exist, and more. I don't know if a public battle is really what Disney or ESPN wants with the FSU fan base. I don't think that they want a legal battle with the state of Florida or Florida State's attorneys if they find out that the College Football Playoff and them violated antitrust laws. But if any of that is found out, that is what's coming. And it will be what gets Florida State out of this conference. If they find that ESPN violated our terms of agreement, violated being a good media partner for us, we will be out. And that'll be that. And again, we're pissed off right now. We're upset right now. We're annoyed right now. But if this ends up being the thing that gets us out, again, we will celebrate the day. Listen, a long way to go in this. Subpoena is just filed. Attorney General Moody said, we won't have any information anytime soon. We won't know anything before this playoff. This is a long process. There's no way that it just happens like that. It's interesting to me, though. You think about Kirk Herbstreit. I'll say this and then I'll get out of here. I said it would be a shorter video, and I'll try and honor that. Kirk Herbstreit came out and said, Florida State fans just whining and complaining and moaning. They don't like facts. That was his big sticking point. You've seen that all over social media. They just don't like, those Florida State fans just don't like facts. And I think that's interesting because it's not just Florida State fans. It is a host of other people that think that they got this wrong. And we have talked about a ton of them. We've talked about Desmond Howard. We've talked about RG3. We've talked about Travis Hunter. We've talked about Dan Mullen and Eli Drinkowitz. We've talked about Booger McFarland, Dave Portnoy, Randy Moss, Aaron Rodgers, Micah Parsons, Gus Malzahn, Richard Sherman, Uncle Luke down at Miami, John Ruiz at LifeWallet, Chris Long, Rich Eisen, Dennis Dodd, Andre Adelson, Bruce Feldman, Tim Brando, Jake Kane, Keyshawn Johnson, Mike Greenberg, Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco's in there. And add it to the list. Florida State's governor, several of their senators, and now an attorney general that's filing antitrust laws against them. It's going to be fascinating to watch this play out. I am proud that my taxes are going towards this. I'm happy that Florida and Miami fans' taxes are going towards this as well. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you're part of the battle's end. Thank you, Rapid SEO Host, for your support on this video. Listen, if you've got a website or a business that needs their assistance, make sure you reach out. See if they can get your website up to speed. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Go Noles.